For 12 weeks, Jackson was the joke of basic training. He couldn't do 10 push-ups while others did 50. But when his squad got captured behind enemy lines, Jackson picked up gear nobody knew he had and vanished into the night. 6 hours later, the enemy base was in flames. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know in the comments which country and city you're watching from today. Fort Benning, Georgia, housed the United States Army Infantry School, where thousands of recruits transformed from civilians into soldiers every year. October 2018 marked the beginning of one of the most challenging training cycles in recent memory, as tensions with hostile forces in Eastern Europe demanded elite infantry preparation. The geopolitical climate had shifted dramatically over previous months, with intelligence reports suggesting American ground forces might soon face adversaries using sophisticated tactics and equipment previously unseen in conventional warfare. Alpha Company, 3rd Battalion, consisted of 42 recruits from across America, each hoping to earn the coveted blue cord of the infantry. These young men and women came from diverse backgrounds. Urban environments where survival meant navigating complex social dynamics, rural areas where self-reliance was paramount, suburban communities where team sports had prepared them for military cooperation. Each recruit brought unique strengths and limitations that would be tested, refined, or eliminated during the crucible of basic training. The training facility itself reflected the Army's commitment to producing elite infantry soldiers. Modern simulation equipment, state-of-the-art weapon systems, and tactical training areas designed to replicate real-world combat environments provided recruits with experiences closely matching operational deployments. Everything at Fort Benning was designed with one purpose: transforming civilians into warriors capable of defending American interests in an increasingly dangerous world. Private Michael Jackson arrived from rural Ohio looking exactly like what drill sergeants expected to fail spectacularly. 21 years old, thin build, soft features suggesting comfortable civilian life rather than military hardship. His background included 4 years of high school, where he'd participated in academic clubs rather than athletics, followed by 2 years of community college studying liberal arts before enlisting. From the moment he stepped off the bus at 3 a.m. on that cold October morning, Jackson appeared fundamentally unsuited for infantry service. His physical appearance reinforced negative first impressions. While other recruits displayed obvious athletic conditioning, muscular development, or at least lean fitness of active lifestyles, Jackson looked like someone who'd spent more time with books than barbells. His pale complexion suggested limited outdoor activity, his soft hands showed no evidence of manual labor, and his overall demeanor radiated uncertainty rather than confidence. Drill Sergeant First Class Rodriguez commanded Alpha Company with 15 years of experience, turning civilians into warriors. Rodriguez had served 3 combat deployments in Afghanistan, earned the Combat Infantryman Badge, and possessed an almost supernatural ability to identify potential within hours of recruits arriving. He prided himself on predicting which recruits would excel, which would struggle, but eventually succeed, and which would fail to meet infantry standards. Rodriguez had seen thousands of recruits pass through his program. Some arrived with obvious potential: former high school athletes, sons of military families, young men and women who radiated natural leadership qualities. Others presented obvious challenges: overweight individuals who would struggle with physical demands, academically limited recruits who couldn't grasp complex tactical concepts, or psychologically fragile personalities who would crack under pressure. But Jackson defied Rodriguez's classification system entirely. Unlike recruits who showed obvious potential or clear limitations, Jackson seemed to exist in a category of his own. Someone trying genuinely hard while consistently failing at everything. This combination of effort and failure created cognitive dissonance that bothered Rodriguez more than straightforward incompetence would have. The first week of basic training revealed Jackson's apparent inadequacies across every measurable standard determining infantry suitability. Physical fitness testing, which served as foundation for all subsequent training, placed Jackson in the bottom percentile of his company and among the lowest scores Rodriguez had seen in his entire career. The Army physical fitness test consisted of 3 components: push-ups, sit-ups, and a 2-mile run. Each component was scored based on age and gender. With minimum passing standards, every infantry soldier was expected to exceed significantly. While average recruits in Jackson's age group managed 30 to 40 push-ups during initial assessment, Jackson struggled to complete 10 before his arms gave out completely. "Jackson," Rodriguez would bark during morning physical training sessions, "my grandmother runs faster than you, and she's been dead for 10 years. The entire company would laugh as Jackson bent over, hands on knees, trying to catch his breath after simple exercises others completed easily. His face would turn bright red from exertion. Sweat would pour down his cheeks despite cool morning temperatures, but he never quit attempting the impossible standards that seemed far beyond his physical capabilities. The sit-up component proved equally challenging. While most recruits managed 50 to 60 repetitions, Jackson's core strength allowed fewer than 20 before muscle failure forced him to stop. His running performance was even worse. The 2-mile run that most recruits finished in under 16 minutes took Jackson nearly 22 minutes, leaving him gasping and trembling at the finish line while others had already cooled down and begun stretching. Combat training proved even more devastating for Jackson than physical fitness assessments. Basic marksmanship, which most recruits mastered within the first week of weapons instruction, remained completely elusive despite weeks of intensive coaching from qualified instructors. At the rifle range, while others consistently hit targets at distances of 200 and 300 meters, Jackson's shots scattered wildly around target frames as if he were aiming at entirely different objectives. "Jackson, you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn if you were standing inside it," Staff Sergeant Martinez would shout after another failed shooting session that left Jackson's target unmarked, while adjacent lanes showed tight groupings from other recruits. How do you expect to protect your battle buddies if you can't hit anything? The marksmanship failures weren't for lack of effort or inadequate instruction. Jackson spent extra hours at the range beyond mandatory training periods, stayed after other recruits had returned to barracks, and practiced sight alignment until his eyes watered from strain and concentration. Weapons instructors provided individual coaching, adjusted his shooting position, modified his grip and stance, but nothing seemed to improve his fundamental inability to hit targets consistently. Range safety officers documented Jackson's performance with growing concern. Military regulations required all infantry soldiers demonstrate basic marksmanship proficiency before advancing to more complex training phases. Recruits who couldn't meet minimum shooting standards faced recycling to earlier training phases or potential discharge from military service entirely. Private Tommy Chen, Jackson's battle buddy and bunkmate, felt increasingly protective of the struggling recruit as weeks passed without improvement. Chen had arrived from California with athletic background earned through 4 years of high school wrestling and natural military aptitude that made him excel in areas where Jackson failed consistently. The Battle Buddy system paired recruits for mutual support, accountability, and shared responsibility for individual and collective success. "Don't worry about it, man," Chen would whisper to Jackson after particularly brutal training days when drill sergeants had focused their attention on his multiple failures. "We'll get through this together." Battle buddies stick together no matter what happens. Chen's loyalty to Jackson went far beyond official battle buddy requirements. He began helping Jackson with everything, carrying extra weight from Jackson's pack during long marches when the struggling recruit could barely manage his own equipment, assisting with weapon maintenance when Jackson's unfamiliarity with mechanical systems slowed progress, even sharing portions of his meal rations when Jackson seemed too exhausted to eat adequate nutrition. Other recruits noticed Chen's dedication to someone who seemed destined to fail and questioned the wisdom of such investment in lost causes. "Why waste time on dead weight?" Private Williams asked Chen during evening downtime when recruits were allowed brief periods of personal conversation. "Jackson's gonna wash out anyway. Don't let him drag you down with him." Williams represented the opinion of many recruits who saw Jackson as liability rather than teammate. In their view, military service required standards that couldn't be compromised for individual feelings or sympathetic circumstances. Infantry units in combat couldn't afford weak links that might endanger entire operations through individual inadequacy. But Chen refused to abandon his battle buddy, creating an unofficial support network among more sympathetic recruits who felt sorry for Jackson's obvious struggles and admired his persistent effort despite repeated failure. This group included several recruits who had overcome their own initial difficulties and understood the importance of peer support during challenging periods. However, something peculiar began happening during Week 6 that caught Chen's attention and raised questions about Jackson's true capabilities. During equipment maintenance hours, when recruits were responsible for cleaning and maintaining their personal gear and weapons, Chen noticed Jackson working alone on weapons systems with surprising precision and mechanical understanding. When Chen approached to offer assistance, Jackson would suddenly slow down, appearing confused and clumsy again, fumbling with components he'd been handling competently moments before. This behavioral shift was subtle, but consistent enough to make Chen wonder what was really happening. Weird, Chen thought to himself, after observing this pattern multiple times. It's like he knows exactly what he's doing when nobody's watching, but pretends to be confused when people are around. Chen began observing Jackson more carefully during off-duty hours, looking for additional signs that might explain these inconsistencies. Late at night, when other recruits were sleeping, Jackson would disappear for bathroom breaks or equipment checks that lasted unusually long periods. Chen followed discreetly one night and discovered Jackson conducting detailed equipment inspections with professional competence that completely contradicted his daytime struggles. More disturbing was Jackson's behavior around classified training materials and tactical instruction. While other recruits struggled to understand complex tactical procedures, weapons specifications, and operational concepts, Jackson's eyes showed clear comprehension even when he pretended confusion during formal instruction periods. He would ask basic questions that seemed almost deliberately simplistic, as if testing instructors rather than seeking genuine clarification. Who is this guy really? Chen wondered, but never voiced his suspicions aloud. Military training emphasized following orders and maintaining focus on individual performance rather than investigating fellow recruits. Chen decided to continue observing while keeping his concerns private. Week 8 brought tactical field exercises that would determine which recruits advanced to specialized infantry training phases and which would be recycled for additional basic instruction or discharged for inability to meet minimum standards. The company would spend 4 days in simulated combat scenarios designed to test everything learned during previous weeks under stress conditions that approximated real combat operations. These exercises represented the culmination of basic training, where theoretical knowledge would be tested through practical application under pressure. Recruits would face scenarios involving movement through hostile territory, engagement with enemy forces, medical emergencies, equipment failures, communication breakdowns, and leadership challenges that tested their ability to function as effective infantry soldiers. For Jackson, these exercises represented his final opportunity to prove he belonged in the infantry, despite months of documented failures across every measurable standard. Drill sergeants and company leadership had already begun discussing whether Jackson should be recycled for additional training or recommended for discharge due to inability to meet basic requirements. The first tactical problem involved squad-level movement through hostile territory, simulated in the dense forests surrounding Fort Benning. Teams of 8 recruits had to navigate from Checkpoint Alpha to Checkpoint Bravo while avoiding enemy forces played by drill sergeants and advanced training cadre with years of combat experience. Jackson's squad, led by acting squad leader Private Martinez, spent hours planning their route using topographical maps, intelligence reports, and reconnaissance information. They studied terrain features, identified potential danger areas, established contingency plans for various scenarios, and rehearsed communication procedures for different situations they might encounter. Every squad member contributed tactical suggestions during the planning phase, except Jackson, who sat quietly in the corner, apparently overwhelmed by the complexity of military planning and tactical decision-making. When other recruits discussed fields of fire, observation posts, covered approaches, and withdrawal routes, Jackson remained silent, as if these concepts were beyond his understanding. "Jackson, you understand the plan?" Martinez asked, with barely concealed doubt about Jackson's ability to comprehend or execute the mission requirements. Jackson nodded slowly and provided a basic summary. Move from Checkpoint Alpha to Checkpoint Bravo. Avoid enemy contact when possible. Communicate through established hand signals. Maintain security throughout movement. His summary was technically correct, but lacked the sophisticated understanding that others demonstrated through detailed questions about contingencies, timing, and tactical considerations. Martinez privately worried that Jackson would compromise the entire mission through some catastrophic mistake or fundamental misunderstanding. The exercise began at 2 a.m. with squads departing at 15-minute intervals to prevent mutual interference and ensure independent execution of tactical plans. Jackson's team moved cautiously through dense Georgia woodland, using night vision equipment and tactical movement techniques learned during previous weeks of instruction. For the first 2 hours, everything proceeded according to their carefully developed plan. The squad maintained proper spacing between individual team members, communicated effectively through predetermined hand signals, and avoided detection by roving enemy patrols that attempted to intercept and eliminate squads before they reached their objective. Jackson kept up with the squad's movement despite his usual physical struggles, though he required frequent brief rests that slowed overall progress toward their objective. Other squad members had to adjust their pace and provide assistance, but Jackson's performance was adequate for mission requirements, even if it wasn't optimal. Then disaster struck at 4:15 a.m., when the squad was approximately halfway to their objective. Enemy forces, played by drill sergeants with extensive combat experience and intimate knowledge of likely approach routes, had anticipated the recruits' most probable paths and established perfect ambush positions that would test the squad's reaction to unexpected contact with superior forces. Jackson's squad walked directly into a coordinated crossfire ambush that simulated devastating casualties through the use of blank ammunition, smoke grenades, and simulation equipment that detected hits on individual recruits. The ambush was expertly planned and executed, designed to create chaos and test leadership under extreme pressure. Within seconds of the ambush initiation, 6 of 8 squad members were declared killed in action by observing cadre who monitored the exercise through advanced surveillance equipment. Only Jackson and Chen remained combat effective and capable of continuing the mission or implementing emergency procedures. "You're combat ineffective!" Drill Sergeant Rodriguez shouted at the casualties who were required to remain in place as simulated dead while the exercise continued. "Jackson and Chen, continue the mission or abort to checkpoint Charlie." Chen looked around desperately at their dead teammates scattered across the forest floor, trying to process the sudden change from successful movement to catastrophic losses. Standard tactical doctrine required surviving elements to either complete the original mission with remaining personnel or withdraw to safety depending on the tactical situation and available resources. With only 2 survivors remaining from an 8-man squad, mission completion seemed impossible according to everything they'd learned about proper tactical planning and resource allocation. "What do we do?" Chen whispered to Jackson, expecting confusion and panic from his struggling battle buddy, who had never demonstrated tactical understanding under normal circumstances, much less during simulated combat stress. Instead, Jackson's entire demeanor changed completely and instantaneously. His usual hesitation and uncertainty vanished, replaced by calm tactical assessment that Chen had never witnessed before during 12 weeks of close observation. "We complete the mission," Jackson said quietly, his voice carrying authority and confidence that seemed to come from nowhere. "Enemy force is approximately squad-sized, positioned in L-shaped ambush formation covering the primary approach route." Chen stared at Jackson in complete amazement. These tactical terms and sophisticated observations came from someone who'd never demonstrated such military knowledge during months of formal instruction and evaluation. "They'll expect us to withdraw or attempt direct assault on their positions," Jackson continued, studying the terrain with professional precision that contradicted everything Chen thought he knew about his battle buddy. "We'll use the secondary approach through the creek bed, establish an overwatch position on the high ground, then proceed to the objective via flanking maneuver." The tactical plan Jackson outlined demonstrated sophisticated understanding of terrain analysis, enemy capabilities, and small unit tactics that surprised everyone monitoring the exercise through concealed observation posts, including drill sergeants with years of combat experience. Jackson led Chen through terrain features he seemed to understand instinctively, moving with stealth and precision that contradicted 12 weeks of apparent clumsiness and physical inadequacy. They avoided 3 additional enemy positions that Jackson somehow detected before visual contact, using movement techniques that weren't taught in basic infantry training. At 6:30 a.m., Jackson and Chen reached Checkpoint Bravo without further enemy contact. Their mission completion time was among the fastest recorded during the exercise, despite having only 2 effective personnel compared to other squads' full 8-man teams operating under normal circumstances. "How did you know those tactical procedures?" Chen asked, as they waited for pickup transportation to return them to the main training area. Jackson returned to his usual hesitant demeanor. "Just paid attention during classes, I guess." But Chen noticed subtle changes in Jackson's behavior from that point forward. During subsequent tactical exercises, Jackson would offer brief, highly accurate tactical suggestions before returning to his normal, quiet uncertainty. His physical struggles continued unchanged, but his tactical awareness seemed to fluctuate between complete incompetence and surprising sophistication. Week 10 brought the most challenging exercise of basic training. A prisoner of war rescue mission that would test recruits under maximum stress conditions while requiring coordination, tactical expertise, and physical courage under simulated combat that closely approximated real operations. Jackson's squad was assigned a particularly demanding scenario. Rescue American prisoners of war held in a fortified compound defended by numerically superior enemy forces with crew-served weapons and prepared defensive positions. Success required everything learned during basic training, plus initiative and adaptability under pressure. The mission briefing took place at 5 a.m. with Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, the battalion commander, personally observing the exercise. Real-world intelligence from ongoing operations suggested that similar scenarios might become reality for infantry soldiers deploying to hostile regions where American personnel faced capture by sophisticated adversaries. Your mission is to infiltrate the compound, locate and extract 3 American POWs, and withdraw to friendly lines, Hayes explained to the assembled recruits. Enemy strength is estimated at 15 to 20 combatants with crew-served weapons and prepared defensive positions. Rules of engagement authorize necessary force to complete the mission. Jackson sat in the back of the briefing room, apparently struggling to understand the complex operational details that other recruits grasped quickly. When other recruits asked sophisticated questions about enemy capabilities, withdrawal routes, medical evacuation procedures, and contingency planning, Jackson remained silent throughout the entire briefing. Squad leader Martinez developed an assault plan that relied on coordinated team movement, precise timing, and individual assignments based on demonstrated strengths during previous training exercises. Each recruit received specific responsibilities that matched their capabilities and experience. Jackson, you'll stay with the rear security element, Martinez decided after careful consideration of personnel assignments. Guard our withdrawal route and provide early warning if enemy reinforcements appear. The assignment effectively sidelined Jackson from the main assault action, while keeping him in a position where his apparent limitations wouldn't compromise the primary mission. Martinez felt this represented the best use of Jackson's minimal demonstrated capabilities. The exercise commenced at 1 p.m. with Jackson's squad moving toward the objective compound through simulated hostile territory. Advanced monitoring equipment tracked each recruit's position and performance for later detailed evaluation by training cadre. Jackson performed his rear security duties competently, if unremarkably, for the first hour of movement toward the objective. He maintained proper position relative to the main element, communicated through established signals when required, and avoided detection by roving enemy patrols. Nothing about his performance suggested capabilities beyond basic competence. The assault phase began at 2:15 p.m. with spectacular and immediate failure that shocked everyone monitoring the exercise. Enemy forces had prepared sophisticated defenses that anticipated the recruits' most likely approaches and tactics. Coordinated machine gun fire, explosive devices, and tactical positioning created devastating simulated casualties among the attacking squad within minutes of contact initiation. Within 5 minutes of the assault beginning, 7 recruits, including Martinez, were declared combat ineffective by monitoring cadre. Only Jackson, positioned in rear security away from the main action, remained alive and mission-capable. "Mission continues," Lieutenant Colonel Hayes announced over radio communications that all personnel could hear. "Surviving personnel must complete prisoner extraction or declare mission failure." Jackson found himself alone, facing a heavily defended compound with 3 prisoners to rescue and no squad support. Standard tactical doctrine suggested mission abortion and withdrawal to safety when facing such overwhelming odds with insufficient personnel. Instead, Jackson did something that shocked everyone monitoring the exercise and would be discussed for years afterward at Fort Benning. He gathered equipment from his fallen teammates, assembled a collection of weapons and ammunition that shouldn't have been manageable for someone with his apparent physical limitations, and began moving toward the enemy compound with purpose and stealth that contradicted everything observed during 12 weeks of training. Monitoring equipment tracked Jackson's approach as he navigated through terrain features with professional precision, avoiding detection by multiple enemy observation posts. His movement techniques demonstrated training far beyond basic infantry instruction, using methods taught only in advanced special operations courses. At 3:45 p.m., Jackson reached the compound perimeter without triggering any alarms or defensive responses. Surveillance cameras captured him conducting detailed reconnaissance that revealed sophisticated tactical knowledge nobody knew he possessed. The prisoner rescue operation that followed would be studied by training cadre for months afterward as an example of individual initiative and tactical excellence under extreme pressure. Moving with stealth and precision that seemed impossible for someone who'd struggled with basic exercises, Jackson penetrated the compound's outer defenses, neutralized several enemy sentries using techniques taught only in advanced special operations courses, and located the 3 prisoner holding areas without triggering general alarm. "How does he know those combat techniques?" one drill sergeant whispered to another while watching the exercise unfold through surveillance equipment. Jackson extracted all 3 prisoners, played by volunteer training cadre, without triggering general alarm or compromising operational security. His withdrawal from the compound demonstrated tactical expertise that suggested years of specialized training rather than 12 weeks of basic instruction. By 5:30 p.m., Jackson had successfully delivered all 3 prisoners to the designated pickup point, completing a mission that had been designed to require full squad coordination and was expected to result in mission failure for training purposes. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes personally debriefed Jackson immediately after the exercise concluded. "Son, where did you learn those tactical procedures?" Hayes asked directly, studying Jackson with new interest and growing suspicion. Jackson returned to his usual hesitant demeanor. "Basic training, sir. Just tried to remember what the drill sergeants taught us during previous exercises." But Hayes wasn't satisfied with that explanation. Jackson's performance had demonstrated capabilities that simply weren't taught in basic infantry training. The movement techniques, reconnaissance procedures, and stealth infiltration methods came from advanced special operations curriculum that required years of experience and specialized instruction. That evening, Hayes contacted Personnel Command Headquarters to request Jackson's complete military records and background investigation. What he discovered would change everything about how the training cadre viewed their weakest recruit and explain months of contradictory observations. Private Michael Jackson's personnel file contained carefully constructed fiction designed to support a deep cover identity. His real records were classified at levels requiring special compartmented information clearance and presidential authorization to access. The struggling recruit was actually an operational alias for one of the Army's most elite special operations personnel. Staff Sergeant Michael David Jackson had served 8 years in the 75th Ranger Regiment before selection for Delta Force operations. His combat record included multiple deployments to Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and classified operations throughout Africa and South America. He'd completed every advanced special operations course offered by the U.S. military and had earned decorations for valor under fire. Jackson's apparent failures during basic training were deliberate performance designed to support an investigation into security breaches at Fort Benning. Intelligence agencies had identified evidence that training information was being passed to hostile foreign intelligence services, compromising future infantry operations and endangering American personnel. The tactical exercise that exposed Jackson's real capabilities had occurred because his cover mission was approaching conclusion with the arrest of the actual security leak, someone within the drill sergeant cadre who'd been photographing training materials and passing classified information to foreign handlers for over 18 months. Drill Sergeant Peterson, responsible for weapons training and marksmanship instruction, had been systematically selling detailed information about new tactical procedures, equipment specifications, and training methodologies to intelligence operatives working for hostile nations. His access to classified training materials made him extremely valuable to foreign intelligence services. Jackson's 10-week observation period had provided enough evidence to prove Peterson's betrayal beyond any doubt. But the tactical exercise had forced Jackson to choose between maintaining his cover and allowing simulated American prisoners to remain in enemy hands. The choice revealed everything about Jackson's real character and training. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes arranged for Peterson's arrest immediately following the exercise. Evidence gathered during Jackson's investigation included photographed documents, recorded conversations, and financial records proving systematic betrayal over 18 months that had compromised multiple training programs. "How long have you been investigating this?" Hayes asked Jackson during classified debriefing. 8 months, sir. Peterson's been selling intelligence about new infantry tactics to foreign operatives. We needed definitive proof of systematic betrayal before taking action. Hayes reviewed the evidence Jackson had meticulously gathered. This intelligence could have compromised infantry operations worldwide. Outstanding work, Staff Sergeant. Jackson's cover identity concluded with his mission objectives achieved beyond original parameters. Security leak identified and eliminated, training integrity restored, foreign intelligence penetration ended. The revelation shocked every recruit and drill sergeant who'd witnessed Jackson's apparent struggles during basic training. Someone they'd considered the weakest member of their company was actually their most elite protector, enduring systematic humiliation while gathering evidence that protected American lives. Chen approached Jackson for a final conversation before his departure. 10 weeks of watching you struggle. Was any of it real? The physical limitations were real, Jackson confirmed. I'd been injured during a classified operation 6 months ago. Physical therapy was part of my cover story for assignment to basic training investigation. But the tactical knowledge was always there. Sometimes protecting people requires accepting their mockery while gathering intelligence that keeps them safe. Chen struggled to understand how someone could endure systematic humiliation while secretly protecting those who inflicted it. How do you handle months of everyone thinking you're incompetent? By remembering the mission, Jackson replied. Every failure I demonstrated gathered more evidence about Peterson's activities. My humiliation served a purpose larger than personal pride. Jackson departed Fort Benning as quietly as he'd arrived, returning to classified special operations assignments. His real identity and accomplishments remained known only to personnel with appropriate security clearances. Peterson received court-martial and lengthy imprisonment for espionage. His conviction eliminated foreign intelligence penetration of infantry training that had compromised American military capabilities for over a year. Alpha Company completed basic training with enhanced security protocols and deeper appreciation for the complexity of modern military operations. Chen and other recruits carried Jackson's story forward as a reminder that heroes don't always appear heroic. Somewhere in classified operations databases, Staff Sergeant Michael Jackson continues protecting America through deep cover assignments that require sacrificing personal recognition for mission success. The story of the weakest recruit became legend at Fort Benning, though few people knew the complete truth. Infantry training continued with improved security and awareness that their greatest protector might be the person they least expected. Sometimes the weakest appearing soldier is actually the strongest guardian of all. Sometimes protecting people requires accepting their contempt while gathering intelligence that saves their lives. What did this story make you feel? Have you ever discovered someone was much more capable than they appeared? Share your experiences in the comments, and don't forget to like the video.